Well, welcome everybody to Thought Leader Friday with our friend Don Kottick from Sotheby's International Realty and our neighbor to the north, Canada. We are excited to have you here, Don. You and I had a chance to meet in New York just a couple of months back, and I know you and Debbie have known each other for quite some time. So I'm going to hand the floor to Debbie to do a little intro of you and to get us started. So everybody get up for Debbie, please.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Hi, guys. Don, we're so excited to have you here today. And I think you're going to be the best person to give us an introduction into you and what you're doing now and what roles you've had in the past that have led you to be the president and CEO of Sotheby's International up in Canada. So share with us a little bit about Don.
All right. Well, great to see you, Debbie. Great to see you, Bill, and great to see you again. I hope everybody out there is safe and healthy right now. To give you a little bit of background in terms of who I am, I've been in the real estate career pretty much most of my career. I started with a company called Royal LePage, which is a large Canadian company. I was director of products and services. I launched, you can date myself here, the first internet site, the first national internet site in Canada. Worked for them for a number of years. I managed their luxury division for a number of years. I went on to become the president of a company called Right at Home, which it grew to have 3,000 agents, and it was the largest independent in Canada. And while I was doing that, I got approached by a company called Realty Partners. They needed somebody that understood the real estate business. I came over, and for the last 5 years, I had been doing mergers and acquisitions. And one of the acquisitions was Sotheby's International Realty Canada. And at the time, they needed somebody to come and run the company. They said, Don, you know, with your background, would you like to come over and run? And I said, absolutely. And I've been here a year now. We had got off to a phenomenal start. We had a very strong December, probably the strongest December on record. We had a great foundation built up in January, February, and then COVID.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me here. In the last little while, I've been living through and managing COVID with a management team all across the country. We're in 32 locations all across Canada. For those of you that don't know, it's a very large area, so it's challenging, but it's been also an amazing ride. So that's how I got here.
That's great. Yes, and I met you when you were working solely with Peerage years ago, and then missed seeing you last. Was it April, May, when you had to step into the shoes of the president of Sotheby's. So
that's great.
Yes, congratulations to that accomplishment as well. So thinking about, because like you mentioned, 30 plus offices across the country, give us a little look into what the current market looks like for you guys in the luxury space. Now that we're in coronavirus, it's not just okay, we're week 1, week 2 in, now that we've experienced it for 5 or 6, and maybe you guys have experienced it longer. Tell us a little bit about the market and relating those to the US markets as well.
Okay, so basically we have the same width, I guess, as you do have in the US. We have very different markets all across the country. We have British Columbia, which a lot of people have read about. It was going through unbelievably high increases in prices, and they basically got hit very hard just prior to COVID. Then we have Calgary, which was impacted by the oil prices. It's probably similar to what's happening down in the Texas area. So they've had the added strain of dealing with COVID and dealing with the oil prices, and they've been very depressed. Then you move over to Ontario, which is really kind of the financial driver of Canada. And we've been going through an absolute boom market. And then you have Quebec, which also, what happened was Vancouver was attracting a lot of people. They put in a lot of foreign buyer taxes. A lot of the foreign buyers moved over to Toronto. Toronto put a foreign buyers tax in. Then they moved to Montreal. And so all these markets were humming with the exception of Alberta. And then when COVID hit, everything changed. And everything has been changing on like almost a day-by-day basis. And our challenge has been keeping up top of what's happening in our provinces, which is the state equivalent in Canada. And so all the provincial governments have responded differently. For a while there, we weren't deemed an essential service. And then in every province except Quebec, they have been deemed essential service. And even yesterday, there's been changes. They opened up a bit and said that if you have to buy before July 31st, you can handle the transaction, but you can't visit the property. And it's changing on a regular basis. So our challenge as a company is just keeping up to date on all the changes, all the government subsidies that are coming by, and it's information overload. And our job is to basically disseminate that agent information to our agents, but in the meantime, keep everybody calm and engaged, and that's the challenge right now.
Yeah, it sounds much like the US, where we're having certain territories that are full steam ahead and the markets are still really buzzing. And then we've got areas where the transaction is 100% virtual. You don't get to see the property and no money exchanges hands. There's an addendum put in place, and you can't actually view it without a valid contract on the property and that sort of thing. So a lot of our spaces seem very similar in that we're still seeing that market move, but it's for each local MLS or government to go through and create whatever provisions are required in order to either continue to sell real estate. We also have some clients out there in some areas where it is non-essential. So very much like, what do we do now that we're dead in the tracks, and continue to know that once the other side of this comes, there will be production. So considering all of that, going into COVID, what was your approach from a brokerage perspective and for your agents? What would be your approach on that? What was your approach?
Well, it's interesting. I had been doing a lot of traveling prior to COVID, and I was on the West Coast when this broke. And it really actually gave me some added time to think about how we were going to approach this as a corporation. And I think this is the way that, if I was a team leader, whether I was an owner of a brokerage, in retrospect, it was the right thing to do. We decided very early on we were going to lead. We decided that if we're going to get through this, we need to make sure that we provide clarity. We need to provide procedures. We need to provide leadership. And we need to be transparent. And so very early on, what we did is, probably before a lot of other companies, we issued protocols. And those protocols developed over time. And they were protocols on how to deal with buyers, how to deal with sellers, how to deal with third parties. And we also created indemnification documents for our agents to use. And we were one of the first companies to ban physical open houses. And then a few days later, the provincial or state organization banned them as well too. And then some people did a lot of confusing things. Some people, did outright bans of in-person visits. We basically created protocols that allowed it to be conducted safely. So we were very, very clear in our communication to our agents, and they knew exactly how to transact in this business. We brought forward our virtual tools. We have a large portfolio of virtual tools. And so we made sure that everybody had the necessary tools to be successful in this market. And a lot of other brokerages didn't do this. And even to this day, we're actually recruiting agents right now because word is getting out that we were one of the first people to do this, and we continue to do it. So, from a leadership perspective, it really positioned us as really leading, and it's really, really worked to our benefit. And we made sure, we got our community messaging out before other people, and we just tried to lead on everything. And then the next component of that was we knew we had to keep our people engaged. So what we did is we started to hold regular video conferencing meetings right from the very beginning. And we told our people, it was like a broken record. I used to say to people, use this time productively. I would say, 6 months ago, pre-COVID, you probably said, oh my God, I would love a weekend off. Well, listen, you've got more than a weekend, you've got a couple months off. Use this time productively to get your business systems in order, reach out to, people like, Bill and Debbie here. And we just said, really get the framework of your business sound, but use this time to reach out to your clients. And, Debbie, I shared with you my kind of thinking is, if you don't connect with your client during this time, remove them from your client list because they're not your client. And that's what this is really all about, is especially now we're 6 weeks in, everybody's starting to feel anxious. And we've actually ramped up communication because people are feeling the stress, they're feeling the tension of being isolated. And now, if I was a team leader or whether I was a broker owner, I would be going overboard in terms of communication, overboard in connecting with my people. I would phone everybody. I would make sure that, and our management team is doing this all across the country, and just really connecting with our people. And actually, I can say during this time, our corporate culture is actually stronger now than it was pre-COVID.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's great. And that was one of those things you did say, and I've used in coaching calls since, as far as if you haven't called them during this period of time, remove them from your sphere. They are not your sphere if you haven't taken the time to call them during this period of time.
Exactly.
And I think such a huge tip there. Also, I saw something else you guys did was the cocktail hour, and it wasn't just like your Bill and Debbie's live music happy hour. It was tuxedos and fancy dresses and to the nines cocktail hour. I thought that was a great idea for a great spin on, your backyard barbecue happy hour. So
yeah, we did that. We did that actually relatively early on. And what we did is we told people, come and, dress up, and I had to wear a tux, and people dressed up. And I got calls from some of our agents going, I can't make it. I can't get to my hairdresser. And I thought they were joking, but they were serious. And it turned into an amazing event. We had, we basically did toast, and it was nothing to do with business. And then we had somebody on the West Coast who's Irish. He gave an Irish toast, and we go around and we just tell stories. And we had people all across the country and into the U.S. And it was so successful that people have wanted more. But it was, once again, it just adds to the closeness. And a lot of these sessions that we're holding, whether it's on positivity or selling or just like on CRMs or whatever, the attendance is unbelievable. Our participation has gone through the roof, which really tells me that, people want to be connected with. And then I tell them the numbers of the people that are appearing. I said, well, think about here, when, a year or so ago, you'd be hard pressed to get maybe 1/10 of your people on video conferencing. Now we're getting 70+% of our population. And so if you're feeling this way, your clients are feeling this way. And I sound like a broken record. I would say, call your agent, call your client list, call your sphere of influence, use this time. And we're also telling people to really, make sure that they work with their coaches and they work with their, mentors and use this time to really hone their sales skills. But it's really important they keep positive. And I think that's one of the things that we try and do is bring stuff that is always going to be positive, because everybody seems to be crashing about now, and now is the time more than ever. If I was leading a team, I would be connecting out to my people.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, Bill, I'll come to you in just 1 minute. I have one more question, because I heard you mentioned the virtual opportunities that your agents are implementing through either the luxury space or general brokerage space. When you think about those tools or tactics that they're implementing that they're having success with, what are some of those tools that they're using, even if they're specific to your brokerage?
Well, one of the things that has really taken off up in Canada right now is live streaming. And so what we have a number of things where we have Realtor.ca, which is run by the Canadian Real Estate Association. So it is, it's not a third party. We actually, as an industry, own it. And so we're fairly nimble in terms of what we can do. And they brought in the ability for us to do live streaming from our listings. And right now our listings are typically we would have about 350,000 listings at this time of year. We're down about 100,000 to 250,000. But we're starting to see traffic increase, which means that people are getting used to kind of this new, the virtual world. And some of the things we've done is we've done live streaming where our agents will basically have the sellers walk through the home, and they'll stream it through Facebook. And now here's a little technical tip that I learned is they don't do the shoot horizontal, they do it vertical, because then if they do it, I know that the natural to do horizontal, but they do it vertically. They have the seller walk through the home, they narrate it, and then they upload it to Instagram, because I guess in Instagram, it's got to be positioned vertically. And we're getting an amazing response from these, to the point where we had a couple $1 million listings yesterday that went in competition up in the Toronto market. There's activity happening. I've also heard of other brokers that have taken holidays. and which to me is a huge mistake. This is a time, I think there's going to be a flight to quality in our market. I think we're going to lose some of the non-producers of the market. I think it's time we had a culling of the herd in our industry, and I think we're going to see that. And I firmly believe that this flight to quality is going to be the people that have really worked hard now to connect with their clients. And, the big thinking now is this is not a time of lost income. It's a time of postponed income. And if you have that mindset and you keep engaged and you keep working, you're going to see all this income that you would have made during this period just pushed out farther down the curve. And I firmly believe that. And so that's kind of what we just keep, keeping our people engaged. Like they sometimes they go, oh, I'm overwhelmed, but I'd rather they be overwhelmed than bored. And, I think the general thinking is at the end of the day, there's probably going to be a baby boom. There are probably going to be people, the divorce rate is probably going to go through the roof. There's going to be people that, want to change their lifestyle, the way they want to live. They don't want to commute. They don't want to get on the trains anymore because there's too many people. And so maybe they're going to move downtown, and then the people downtown may say, I don't want to live in these urban densified areas, and they're going to go to the rural areas. So I think there's going to be a whole realignment that's going to come in the future. And once again, I do believe that we are going to get through this. We're going to get through this strong. Yes, there's going to be a lot of financial, weight from this whole scenario, but it's a global, scenario. We're all in this together. All the countries, are at the same starting point. It's not like, Japan's doing really well and, we're struggling. Everybody's struggling. So I do believe we'll come out of this fast and strong. And, how it takes off, it's anyone's guess. But I do believe at some point we are going to take off. We're going to take off fast. And, like I said, get your business systems in order and connect with your people and use your social media. Like, get out there, send positive stories. Like on LinkedIn, I'm always posting positive stories, just, little anecdotes, little memes. People want to see that stuff, and the response rate is really high.
Sure. It's interesting you say that. We've been saying that too with the divorce rate and the baby boom. They did just a little segment on the news yesterday that they had administered, 347 more tests this March than last year, and 100 and some of them are positive, more so than last March. So yeah, that's definitely happening. And me with having 3 teenage girls at home, my husband and I were contemplating downsizing. We're in 3,400 square feet, and we're like, this house is too small at this point, right? we either need to buy a second home for the children or something. All right, Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, so Don, I know the people who are watching this interview who have been around us for a while must be thinking that we fed you a script for this entire interview, because it's beautifully amazing how much you're saying aligns with not only what we've had previous guests on Thought Leader Friday to share, also the message that emanates throughout our organization. So thanks for validating that what we're doing actually makes sense. We appreciate that. Those of you who are watching the interview live, feel free to post some comments, either questions for Don, that if we have some time at the end, I'll facilitate some Q&A for us, or along the way, I've already written down a number of notes. You've seen me taking notes during the video, little light bulb moments or little zingers that you hear from Don. Drop them in the comments as well, so we know that what he's saying also resonates with you. Don, one of the things I pinged on a second ago is you were talking about leading from the front and getting out ahead of this, and how you observed a lot of your competition sort of retracting. And if you don't mind, build on that a little bit. I know you've touched on some specific things that you've done. I'm interested in how are you leading your leaders, and then therefore how are they leading their firms in the retention of their people and the recruiting of people from the other firms who have just gone into a hole while you guys have been busily working and adding value.
Well, I think a part of, in terms of our leadership group, once again, it's I believe in full transparency. We haven't got any government assistance. So one of the things we had to do is we had to lay off 20 people out of 65 people across the country. And so rather than have people talk, and create rumors, I came right out and said, we're going to temporarily lay off a certain number of people because we're not eligible for any of the government subsidies. And, these people will hopefully come back. Well, they will come back when the market recovers. So I always dealt with everything openly and transparently. And one of the things I said to the agents across the country, and I equipped my management team with this, is I said, you have to sometimes state the obvious, is that if you as an agent don't have any revenue coming in, we as a company don't have revenue coming in, because they always think, well, the brokerages have all the money. But the reality is, if they're not making money, we're not making money. But that said, we did a number of things, like we had some monthly fees. We eliminated them for a certain period of time to be reassessed. So we did things to take some financial pressure off them. Once again, we acted before other people had acted, and we communicated it. And it was really about over communicating, and just make sure that usually I would not attend every office meeting every week, but I've been attending every meeting. I've been showing up, and it's kind of like the state of the nation every week. And so the agents appreciate that I would show up, and I would reveal things, and I would also tell, this is what's happening. These are the regulatory changes. These are the legislative changes, but these are internally some of the stuff we're doing on to help you. And one of the things is you have to keep reiterating what you're doing, and people they do want to hear it, and sometimes they need to hear things a few times. And it's all about clarity, transparency, and providing leadership, and empowering your leaders to have those same discussions. And that's how they feel very engaged. And to be honest with you, our team is working 7 days a week right now. And some people are saying, oh, isn't this great? We're getting some time off. Well, we're not. I've never worked harder. I've never received more email. There was one point last week, I had 2 video conferences, one on my phone and one on my computer. And it's crazy, but it's also, there's an adrenaline rush you get from this, right? Because I love the fact that we're succeeded in basically leading up here in Canada. And once again, we're recruiting. Our managers are so motivated, because people are hearing about what we're doing. We actually invite them to certain initiatives that we're doing, so they can hear and see what we're doing. We're walking the talk. And we also use PR a bit too. We sometimes, make sure we get into the industry newspapers up here, and we tell them what we're doing, which helps get the word out, because PR is free, and why not take advantage of it? So that has really worked to our benefit.
Well said. Well, so we, as I mentioned at the top of the call, we met briefly recently, and we're 23 minutes into this. And I think you and I are already like best buds on the same wavelength, because everything that you're saying right now completely resonates with what Debbie and I and our team have been up to for the past 7 weeks. So virtual high five for that. Right. Debbie, back to you.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is about working hard right now. And I was actually doing we coach with the other coaches, and that was one of the conversations we were having this week. Is I feel like I'm going to need a vacation once coronavirus passes, where everyone else will be like, oh, we get to go back to work and go to the office. Exactly. I'm like, I will be at the beach somewhere with my phone turned off and no Zoom camera.
I'll meet you in the speakeasy.
Yes, sir. We'll take a bike ride home. Yeah. Oh, goodness. So considering that your space is predominantly luxury, I know Sotheby's also works with clients outside of luxury. Considering that luxury means different things to different people in different areas across the U.S. as well as Canada, and for some it's a primary residence luxury purchase, and for some of luxury it's a second, third, and fourth and fifth home purchase, right? So when you think about the pandemic overall, what impacts do you think that this is going to have on the luxury market as a whole?
Okay, well, once again, the definition of luxury can be very wide. We're, like I said yesterday, we're seeing multiple offers in the some of the $2 to $4 million range in Toronto. Toronto has been a boom market for quite some time. And I guess, is your definition of ultra rich luxury, that basically probably isn't even touched by anything that's going on, because that money moves all the time. But I think what we're seeing is in some of our feeder markets, where we have cottages and rural properties, there's been some interesting trends where people have been looking for, like we have this market called Collingwood, and we have $500,000 condos. The average price in Toronto, can be for a detached, probably like 1.6, 1.8, depending on the time. So $500,000 doesn't buy you much, but a lot of people have been looking as a result of COVID to get a secondary residence, a place where, they need to get away for the weekend. And so it's kind of opened up a whole new kind of buyer that wasn't here before. But depending on the market, if the inventories are low, but there are a lot of buyers. We used to have a lot of immigration, but the immigration has been stopped. But there's still a lot of buyers. There's a lot of pent up demand right now. So our average price typically has pretty much maintained its current rates. And the people that are selling some of these luxury properties in some of the feeder markets have gone purely virtual. They're using the video, their Matterport. They're really ramped up the social media aspect of it, and it's drawing a lot of people to their properties. And so yeah, we are doing deals, like even Quebec, which is shut right down. Deals are happening.
Yeah. Are there any specific tools that, I know you mentioned like the virtual showings and that sort of thing. Would you say that's probably the more specific tool that's resonating with that buyer that can't travel to view these homes or get in and out of the properties to take a look at those?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things like, some people, sometimes they can get a third party in to shoot. A lot of times they can't. Sometimes they're relying on the seller to provide the images. There's we have like a whole spectrum, and we launched this. There's a company called ImageMaker 360. They do narrated virtual tours out of still photographs, and so we have a special alliance with them. It's not very expensive, but it allowed stills to be created into professionally narrated tours, and so we did an alliance with them, and the uptake has been very high in terms of that product. And then you still have the people that find ways to do the higher price, the Matterport, the videos and things like that. So it's a real smorgasbord in terms of what people are doing, but they have created entire virtual operations. So and they did this very early on, and a lot of the people were promoting that we've created the ability for us to do everything virtually, and they used it as a selling advantage.
Absolutely. What do you think recovery looks like from this?
Well, I think I would be lying if I said I knew, and I don't think anybody does know, right? I think you can only kind of speculate, and you're either an optimist or a pessimist. I would rather be an optimist. We are banking on the fact that we are going to come out of this strong. In Canada, we're hoping for a hockey stick recovery. Whether it's that dramatic, we don't know. Whether it's a V or a U, it's going to come. Some people think there's going to be a bit of a delay when the recovery comes, because how they ease into this is going to be important. The good news is that real estate in every area except Quebec being deemed as essential service we're starting to see an uptick in business. We're starting to see leads generated online increase on a daily basis. So we're already starting to see the curve ramp up. And, so I think that the recovery will be relatively fast. There's always going to be naysayers. There's going to be people say the sky is falling, the debt's going to crush us. But I believe that the governments realize that up in Canada, when you sell a home, there's about 75,000 in ancillary revenue that flow off each transaction. And the governments that we've been talking to, I'm a member of the Canadian Real Estate Association, and we've been lobbying the government up here to try and get them to have real estate lead the recovery. And I think NAR would do the same down there, because it kickstarts the economy. So I think we're going to see some kind of initiatives in the real estate space that are going to help us fuel the recovery. But so I'm optimistic. I do believe it's going to be a great year at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll come to Bill. Do you have an additional question for Don?
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on a couple of things, Don. So the first would be, we would agree with what you're saying is nobody really knows. We take the very optimistic viewpoint as well. So I'm interested in your thoughts on one piece of advice for the agent who's watching this, and one piece of advice for the broker owner who's watching this. And if they're saying, I believe things are going to get better, I'm just not sure when, what should I do between now and then, whenever then is? So what would you offer? And if it's more than one, that's fine too. What would you offer to the agent and to the broker owner?
Well, I think from the agent, I mean, there's two things, and it's what I had said is reach out to every person that you know. Don't reach out to be opportunistic. Reach out to see if they need help. Reach out to see how they're doing. One of the things that we're doing next week is we've aligned ourselves with a new charity that deals specifically with mental health, and it's actually mental health for young people. And what I think we're going to see mental health issues continue to increase, which is one of the reasons why you're going to find that instead of people finding out your realtor and you've called them and they hang up, you call them and just see how are you doing, right? And you don't even have to talk about real estate, and you just say, listen, like this is a tough time, like admit it, and just say, we're all going through this. We're 6-7 weeks into this, and I'm just phoning to talk. If you need anything, do you need somebody to pick up your groceries? Do you need this? Do you need that? I just want to let you know that I have people that can help you. We're here for you. And that's it, right? And just, you don't talk about real estate. You just connect, you bond, and they will remember that, because a lot of people aren't doing that. And I think that's the most important thing from an agent perspective. And then the other thing is, like I said, is, have sessions with the two of you, and keep that positive mindset, keep working on your systems. It's so important that you keep your mind active, and you keep your mind refreshed, and you keep your mind positive. And I think I'm a firm believer, you live in abundance and good things come to you. And, you live in a scarcity, you live in a world of negativity, that's what you're going to get. I really, really firmly believe that. And I think that, the support that you guys give your clients is just reinforces that. And I think more than ever, I think the role that the two of you play in your clients is extremely important. From a brokerage perspective, my advice is, connect with your agents. Make sure your agents are all doing good. Make sure your management team is calling everybody. If you're a team leader, check in with your people on a regular basis. Hold sessions. Like, some of our agents are doing things like there's a Jeopardy game that you can play. There's a bingo. One of my agents basically did babysitting for her clients, where she said, I'm going to babysit your clients virtually. You can go off for an hour and do whatever you want to do, but I'll be here on watching your clients. And so she did that service, and it was a home run. And then the next day she did bingo with the kids and things like that. So and she's like getting all these accolades from her clients, right? So there's different ways to connect with your clients right now. And sorry, I jumped way back to agents, but in terms of brokerage, I think there's a real opportunity, because I do believe, from what I'm seeing up in the market up in Canada, there are a lot of people that are not leading. And now is the time to lead, whether you're a team leader, whether you're a broker owner, like step it up, right? Like get out there and show your community, thank the healthcare workers openly, do things to, fundraise, align yourselves with a charity, just be seen and involve your people. It's just a great way to, further strengthen the culture of your organizations, because once again, the flight to quality that's going to happen, the strong cultures are going to survive, and the weak are going to lose people and potentially disappear.
Yeah. Well, something you said earlier in the conversation too, I think was super important, that you guys, it sounds like you're doing a beautiful job of, is not only are you out in front, you're over communicating that to your people internally. And you've used the phrase broken record a couple of times. However, as well as we do, that's super, super important, because our people sometimes need that reassurance, or sometimes need that encouragement. So
Sure.
It's absolutely that leading from the front thing. I've got one other question before I pass it back to Debbie, and then I'm going to monitor some of the Q&A as well. So if you see me looking at my phone in just a minute, I am still very engaged with this conversation. I'm just fielding Q&A.
Well, if you fall asleep, I'm going to call you out.
Oh, no, you don't have to worry about that at all. So one of the questions we ask all of our Thought Leader Friday guests is, what do you think is going to stick on the other side of this? And you've touched on this a little bit already. Some things maybe we've been forced into right now that you see really becoming more mainstream on the other side. Would love your thoughts on that. And then I'm gonna pull some questions from Q&A as well.
For sure. The world is changing for sure. I think that the whole video conferencing, I spend a lot of time traveling. I think things are going to change. I think our agents are getting more comfortable with video conferencing. So I think it definitely shortens the distance. I think we're going to see more of that. I think a lot of broker owners are going to be questioning large office space. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at their expenses and seeing, the way we did business in the past may not be the way we're going to do business in the future. So I think there's going to be a whole reassessment of our business. And, I think that the consumers are going to be different as well too. Because right now they're doing a lot of research online more so. I think we're going to find statistics are going to show that the consumers are, much more comfortable doing a lot of research online. We knew they started there, but now I think we're going to find that they're used to doing more research there. So once again, it's going to be a flight to quality. It's the agents that can define themselves through high levels of customer service are going to be the ones that are going to be left standing at the end of this day. And that's just because, you're going to have to define your value proposition more so than you ever had to do it in the past. I think a lot of these agents that just, do a couple transactions, a year, and they might work in another area. I don't see them, staying around. I think a lot of these people that hold licenses and just do one deal for family, I think we're going to see a lot of those people go. And, the number of transactions will continue to be high, but it's going to be, who can define themselves by their and communicate their value proposition are the ones that are going to be successful. So we're changing as an industry, but I think the consumer is changing too. And it's yet to see how that's all going to ramp out at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Debbie, back to you. And then I've got 2 questions from the Q&A.
Perfect. Yeah, one thing that I know, I'll address the elephant in the room. So we talk a lot about retention, right?
Yes.
The other side of that is, for those who, some people term it recruiting. I personally called it rescuing when I was in the role. And then growth is another term that we use. So when we think about moving into the next phase and the opportunity to bring in like-minded, great agents into our organizations, are you guys pushing for growth at this point? And what does that look like? And then what advice would you have for people out there, either at the brokerage owner level versus the team level? I have some teams asking me, is it good? Is it bad that I'm growing my team? What does that look like from a recruiting, rescuing, or growth perspective, however you want to term it?
Well, I mean, there's different schools of thought on this, but I think one of the things, I think if you're seen aggressively recruiting at this time, it's going to seem opportunistic. I think if you do this passively, one of the things we're finding is our agents are talking to other agents about what we're doing, and the number of interviews have increased. Now, one thing we are going to do probably, maybe in about 2 weeks from now, is we're going to start talking more in terms of what we have done to lead during this crisis, and this just came out of a discussion yesterday, because we have so many brokerages that are doing nothing. And, we're just going to say, this is what we've been doing, and we're going to communicate that and get the word out. Because I think initially it would not have gone over well to try and aggressively recruit. Like, I know some people that are trying to aggressively recruit right now, it's backfiring on them. They're looking to be insensitive. But I think if you can do it through passive measures, just by getting your agents talking about what you're doing and inviting other agents from outside companies to attend, like a session with you guys, that to me just, you're not saying come and work for us. We're just saying, hey, this is what we do. And that to me has been working for us. We have one manager that's she's on top of the world. She's just been every day she's got a video conference interview, and she's closing people without even actually physically seeing them. And obviously, to do this, you have to make sure that you can effectively communicate, the corporate value proposition virtually, and we're able to do that, and we do it very effectively. So my answer is yes, you want to do it passively, you don't want to do it aggressively. And then in terms of retention right now, it just goes back to keeping people engaged, let them feel the love, let them feel appreciated, let them feel part of the family, keep adding all these initiatives to bind them to the organization.
Yeah. And to add on to that, because I don't know if all of our viewers know this or not, but when you talk about like with Bill and I doing sessions, that's something we have been doing over the past 4 or 5 weeks is independently for, like you call us for your organization, doing some guest appearances and sales meetings or just guest trainings and that sort of thing, because you're right, that coaching and that guidance and that mentorship is so extremely important right now. One, just to stay focused, but two, just to know what's next and what other people are doing. That, I think that is a valuable recruiting tool to have people see what you're doing out there outside of just the systems and tools that you offer any day, be it before Corona or currently. So.
Oh, absolutely. I think they're going to remember, that you were brought into the organization at a time when, they were going through a lot, and you're there helping them. And especially, things are going to start ramping up at some point, and they're going to say, wow, you really did look after me. And you'll get that loyalty. And whether you're on a team or a brokerage, like this is the time to get active. This is not the time to sit back.
Yeah. All right, Bill, what questions do you have?
Well, as I read the questions, there's some overlap between the two that I was going to ask. So I'm going to paraphrase and I'll ask it this way. Let's say that I'm a broker owner and I have some agents in my firm who aren't really bought into the methodology that you've laid forth. How do I get them on board and motivate them? And let's say that I am the lead agent of a sales team, similar problem. I have some people on board, some people not. How do I rally the troops, lock arms, and go forth in this thought process?
Are you talking about the use of our protocols and things like that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the overarching idea of like, let's just not sit back and take a holiday. Like, let's go double down on what we're doing. Let's lead from the front. Let's take care of our people, those types of things. If you've got someone who's like, I don't know, Don, like that sounds all right to me. That also sounds kind of hard. And I don't know if I really want to work that hard. How would you persuade them to be all in with your game plan?
I would approach that individual one-on-one. I would call them and just say, listen, I've sat on a number of sessions, and I can tell you that, this is an opportunity, right? I think somebody said it best. The Chinese word for crisis has 2 characters. One means danger, one means opportunity. So we're in a crisis. So what do you want this to be? This is an opportunity. And I think the best way, from my personal approach, is I would have not a face-to-face, like a
Sure.
a virtual to virtual with that person. And I believe the ammunition to get active now, if they don't understand that, then I would probably question, how successful are they really going to be in the future, right? Like, it's like I can't share enough how important this time is, right? It's almost like it's survival of the fittest right now, and so you can prepare for survival of the fittest, or you can go take a holiday, right? That's kind of the way I'm viewing this, and like, we try and keep everybody pumped up, right? And the managers do it, and I do it, and we're just reaffirming it. And then we have, we'll bring in positivity speakers and other aspects, and then they'll see all these tools, and everybody will saying the same thing: use this time productively. And at the end of the day, there's some people that are going to get on the bus, some people that need to get off the bus. But if he doesn't accept a face-to-face, then you really have to question whether he wants to be successful.
Right. Well said. All right, Debbie, parting thoughts from you, and then parting thoughts from Don before we wrap up, please.
Absolutely. So parting thoughts for me, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. I truly appreciate your time. I know it's very valuable right now with all that you are running and doing and presenting and all of those things. You know, one quote comes to mind for me, like you said, is we may not all be rowing the same boat, but we're in the same ocean. And so just keep your head down and keep working, and hard work now is really what's going to pay off down the road. We can't sit back, relax, and then think that we're going to come back into income or success or production, because as we all know in real estate, what we do today shows up 60 to 90 days from now. So that would be, you know, a lot of what I took away from your talk today. And I think I'm going to go pursue the flight of quality, right? We're in that quality, and appreciate your time. So any parting thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting. When I first got into this business, I was managing people, and I would see people and they would go out and they would have great success for 3 months. And they go, oh my God, I need a holiday. And then they would take a holiday, and then nothing would happen for the next 8 months, right? And so I learned that very, very early on. And so now, you know, my advice is you've got this fertile field in front of you, and all you have to do is plant, you know, the crops, and they will grow. And they will grow fast and furiously. So once again, it's an amazing opportunity. Like this is an opportunity for you. Never in your life, probably again in your life, hopefully, will you ever have this amount of time to get your personal life and your business life in order. And that's why, you know, I would engage, you know, Debbie and Bill, and if you need, you know, the support and assistance, you know, that's a great approach. But I would use this time very, very productively. It is a huge opportunity. I hope everybody remains safe and healthy. And Debbie and Bill, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been great to see you both, and hope to see you all again soon, hopefully in person.
Yes, love that. Maybe a Red Rock concert in Colorado when you're down that way sometime.
That would be nice. That would be nice for sure.
It sounds great. Well, thanks for being with us, Don. One programming note for those of you who regularly tune into Thought Leader Friday. Next Friday, May the 1st, we're going to be doing a private event for clients and team members only, a digital mastermind facilitated by someone who does that for Fortune 100 companies in the U.S. So no Thought Leader Friday for the general public next week. Here's a fun little teaser to get you further assimilated into the work that we do. Don, great to see you, my friend. Lots of wisdom today, and thanks for your time. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Debbie. See everybody. All the best.